Hey everybody, welcome to another Yami Noob Q&A. I've been having a lot of fun with this format. You guys have been coming through and has crazy engagement on these videos. I think you're appreciating me answering your questions. I'm loving the questions I'm getting. So for our future episodes, drop a comment down below. I picked through this video's comments for the questions. Let's jump in. All right. Andrew Raw 9286 has asked, why don't you like inline fours? I find them smooth, easy to use, and great fun when you let the revs build. I currently have a V-twin, but I'm not convinced that it's better than the fours I've had in the past. So it's not that I don't like inline fours. There's plenty of inline fours that I've had a lot of fun with and enjoyed. I think the most recent one I rode was the MV Agusta Brutale 1000. I also really enjoy, obviously, the Kawasaki H2. I loved my Hayabusa. Those are all inline four motorcycles. Yeah, you could say they're a little weird and oddball. And I do find that like mid-displacement inline fours don't quite do it for me. You know, like the 6 to kind of 800-ish cc inline fours that I've tried, you know, if they're a little detuned or if they're way too hopped up for race use on the street, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I find that on track, the V4 configuration is probably my favorite. I feel like it just gives you a lot of emotion, a lot of character, and obviously a ton of performance as well. And then on road, I've always tended to like V-twins and 3-cylinders. And really, it's just because that's what I started riding with. You know, my first bike was a Yamaha R3. It was a parallel twin. And then I moved over to the Daytona. That was a 3-cylinder. I have tons of experience with 3-cylinder motorcycles. And then I had a Ducati Scrambler, which was an L-twin for a long time. And I just find that kind of like romp of torque to just be really nice to use on road. But I understand that for a lot of people, if you start your motorcycling journey, and let's say your first big bike is a 4-cylinder, that's always going to be in your mind as like, that's like what a motorcycle is supposed to feel like. That's my engine configuration, you know? But I've had lots of fun with 4-cylinders on track and road. I think the ZX6, for example, super fun to use on road, really enjoyable on track as well, great platform. Hell, even the ZX4, I really liked that motorcycle too. So I wouldn't say I don't like inline fours, it's just that for whatever reason, my personal stable has never really included an inline four unless you count the Hayabusa, which doesn't really count, I don't think. Stephen Strange X has asked, why do Americans hate small engine bikes like the Honda XR150L? Well, leave it to someone who's not an American to paint Americans with a broad stroke. This is something I've been talking about on the channel more and more, is that, you know, American motorcycling culture is so wide and varied and maximalist, and we kind of do everything everywhere all the time here. So maybe it's that you see in your feed there's, you know, a lot of baggers, a lot of Busas, a lot of roll racers and stuff. But we have a whole video coming out about why that perception is. And to be honest, I have seen here in Austin no less than 4 or 5 XR150Ls just like running errands and running around and doing things. I would not say that Americans hate small bikes like the XR150. I think it's that we have and enjoy a higher purchasing power, and a lot of Americans who are into motorcycling tend to be people who are a little bit older and have a little bit more money, and so we tend to own many bikes in our stable, right? Those of us who own several motorcycles, you may have something like an XR150, but you'll also have an adventure bike or a sport bike or a cruiser or a bagger, you know, and so that XR150 may be used for little errands and runarounds here and there, but it's not going to be a main ride. Whereas someone who can only afford one motorcycle, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to own a 150 as your only bike in America because it's just not simply highway capable. And oftentimes we have to get out and use highways and fast stroads around here. That's street and road where the speed limits are like 55 miles per hour through like a suburban center. And an XR150 just would feel a little uncomfortable in those areas. So that's why I think maybe you see this like lack of love for little displacement motorcycles in America. And also one final point about that is we simply don't sell a lot of these type of bikes here. You know, I know in Europe there's the R125, there's a bunch of products in India and Brazil from Hero or TVS that we literally just don't get those bikes. And so it's not even like we're choosing to not buy them. They're just not even available in our market. So it's a pretty broad answer to this question. And we're going to have a whole video coming out pretty soon talking about some of these ideas. I'm really excited about that one. I worked pretty hard on the scripting for it. All right, next question. Brandon Torres, 5955, has asked, will we ever get another off-road video? I know the views probably won't support it, so the answer is no, but I miss Papa Yam playing around or yamming around on a dual sport. Man, you know, YouTube's a funny thing where once people kind of pigeonhole you as like a type of creator, it's virtually impossible to step outside of that role. And you either embrace the role and just do what you got to do and separate the other stuff, or what I see a lot of people do is they try to make all these different types of videos and the audience gets confused. And it's like, you know, your audience comes to you for one type of thing, right? Like, I know that the people who watch Yami Noob, a lot of them are entry-level riders or they're intermediate-level riders thinking about like their next big bike or anything like that. And we have a few, I wouldn't say a few, like maybe 10% of our people are like hardcore, you know, super experienced motorcyclists. But the vast majority of people on YouTube watching motorcycle stuff are beginners who are primarily interested in street riding. And, you know, we cater to that audience. We feature stuff like the R7, the middleweight nakeds. I think I did like, gosh, I think from 2024 until like end of 25, it was like nothing but middleweight sport bikes nonstop, to the point where even I was getting bored of it. And that's why I did the Tuono V4 and the Panigale V4, because I was like, I just want to mix this up a little bit. So anyways, long story short, I can't really justify making off-road videos on YouTube. However, that does not mean I don't like riding off-road and I don't want to do stuff with it, and I may sprinkle in some stuff here and there. Just as a bit of an anecdote, so like 3 years ago, I did this crazy trip in Canada where I rode 5 days hard enduro with some guys up from the ERAG or Traction ERAG magazine. Super fun event. I think if I'd had a slightly more appropriate bike, I would have had a better time. And if I could have slept, I would have had a better time. For some reason, I wasn't able to rest while I was there. And then that kind of put me off from like proper dirt bikes for a while. So I sold my Husky FE501 and my KTM 250, and then my WR 250 that I had, I got rid of that too. But, I say this but, I've been toying around with the idea of adding a WR 250F to my stable and going out and doing some more enduro again, because I kind of miss it. And especially because, you know, the racetracks that I used to go to, the Eagles Canyon Raceway, for example, I have to drive there overnight, sleep, wake up, do the track day, and come back. I can't really do that super regularly nowadays. I have 2 little kids. I can't turn to my wife every weekend and be like, all right, see you in 2 days. You know, that's pretty brutal. And I want to be present for my kids too. So I got to wait until a little bit older to do more track days. But again, long story short, I want to get a dirt bike because there's several places to ride here in Central Texas where I can go for a day. Like the kids in daycare, I can bomb out for 4 or 5 hours, jump on the dirt bike, rip around, come back home. That's a ton of fun. So I am heavily considering a WR250F for that reason. Stay tuned. Watch this space. But I maybe won't make a video about it. Maybe I'll just own it because I like to. And it's also like, I don't want to make videos about everything I do with motorcycling. Some motorcycling things are precious to me. I just want to keep it to myself. You know, like I made one video about the Daytona in the past like year because no one cares really. And it's just for me, you know, and it's kind of a weird thing. ZX10R2KQ or K2Q has asked, will you ever bring back the stache? Man, you know, I was actually looking at a photo the other day of me. I was on that Vespa G310 GTS, and I was sitting in front of my house with my baby girl. She was sitting right here in front of me on the Vespa. It was a cool photo, but I had the big thick stache, and honestly, bro, I don't care what anyone says, that stache looked killer. It was waterfalling, it was thick, it was beautiful. That was a good mustache. I don't care what people said online. I wanted to keep that mustache. The thing is, my daughter and my wife were both like, this stache is not working. My baby girl, she hated playing with me because this mustache would just scratch her and she'd say, no, daddy, no. And then my wife is like, I just don't like that thing around me. And so the stache was sort of vetoed out of the family, unfortunately. But if I was a single man with no wife, no kids, you can bet your bottom dollar I'd keep that stache. That thing was righteous. And honestly, I think I looked good with it. I liked it. MUK2JR has asked, Grandpa Yam. Whoa, hang on a second. I'm barely Papa Yam, all right? Hold on, Grandpa Yam. I need a super fast yet super comfortable bike that can handle twisties, but also handle highway slogs with comfort. Which bike should I get? So this might be a bit of a hot take, if you will, because most people would ask or see this question and say, this person needs a sport touring motorcycle. This person obviously wants something big, fast, comfortable on the highway, all that stuff. FJR 1300, Ninja 1000 SX. I don't think so. I think that most riders are best served by something like an MT-09 SP with some saddlebags on it. The other day I was riding back home and I saw a guy with an MT-09 and he had two pretty nice size saddlebags on the back. T-shirt, helmet, half helmet thing, like modular helmet, he had it flipped up. Guy was big chillin'. And I thought to myself, that might just be one of the most ideal combinations for street use. Because really a sport touring motorcycle, they are vastly over capable for just like twisty road riding, like fun riding. I understand that they're capable of doing it, and I have done it many times with many big bikes. I did a test on a GSX-S 1000 GT. I've done, I had a MV Agusta Turismo Veloce 800. I've done tons of sport touring bike reviews. And the thing that always sticks out to me is I find them to be too optimized for long distance, ultra comfortable stuff. Tracer 9 GT, perfect example. The bike is way too optimized, in my opinion, for long distance. If you want to do thousands of miles, then yes, sport touring is the way to go. But most people are not doing that, right? Most people want something that they can run like an hour and a half, 2 hours on the highway to get to a fun twisty road, do the twisty road, and then come back 2 hours on the highway home. Like I imagine, like I've done some rides in Malibu and LA, and it is a slog being on those highways sometimes. You gotta tough it out for hours on these highways to get to the mountains, to get to the cool spot. And I think that, MT-09, windshield, some bags, something like that, I think would be the best solution. So that's just my take. Without a doubt, one of the most exciting things I do on this channel is give away motorcycles. I think I'm up to like 71 different bikes I've done over the last 7 years, and I have no plans on stopping. I know many of you are excited to get entered and win these bikes, and the easiest way to do that is becoming a member on my website, yammynoob.co. Not only are you supporting one of the largest independent voices in motorcycling on YouTube, but you're locked in to win every single giveaway we do. The way it works is that you stack up entries as a member, and every time we launch a new motorcycle, you're already locked and loaded, ready to go. You can apply your entries and make sure you're entered to win. There's no guesswork, there's no timing, any multipliers, there's nothing like that. You simply are a member, you get your chances, and it's done. Head over to the website and learn all the different ways you can enter to win my giveaway motorcycles and support the show at yammynoob.co. I truly do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the show. Armand Swanepol 4345 has asked, for the love of all that is good, wow, can you please do a loaner / giveaway KTM Super Duke? KTM is one of those brands that I'm kind of like, I'm waiting on. I'm holding my breath a little bit. I think the last KTM we did as a giveaway was an RC390 at the end of 2023. And even that bike, it was like, okay, it's their single cylinder offerings, because there was already kind of rumors about their like reliability and some of the problems and the bankruptcies and all that stuff. I just find KTM to be a very polemic brand, and I think a lot of people do too. And until they build back some of their good faith, it's not gonna be a good giveaway motorcycle, because the giveaway bikes have to be exciting and fun and something someone would really want to own and usually have some sort of mass appeal to. It's why I can't give away, like a Ducati 916 or a CBX, like these really cool bikes that only a few people would actually want to own and ride. It's got to have mass appeal. So KTM as a brand is a bit tough. And then Super Duke as a motorcycle is interesting. I understand some people will go gaga over them. They find it just, it's the most brutal V-twin, whatever. I don't really think they're that great. I've ridden like 2 or 3 of them, and yeah, it has a tremendous amount of torque, but that's about it. I don't find the chassis to be that interesting or good to ride. I find that other products from Aprilia, Yamaha, Ducati, they all do the hyper naked thing better, more reliably, without the KTM baggage. So I don't know, not to be too mean to KTM, but until they change a lot of stuff, I have to just kind of take a step back. It's the same reason I did that with CF Moto. The CF Moto stuff came out, the subscriptions and the Chinese stuff, and I was like, I'm not gonna touch this brand. Sorry. Elior Shansky W4D6H has asked, how do you feel about cars? I think these are these usernames that are like randomly generated or whatever. How do I feel about cars? That's a massive question. I have conflicting feelings about cars. So I'm gonna try to do this in a quick way for you guys. So when I was much younger, when I was in my teen years, I loved motorcycles and cars kind of in equal measure. I thought both were very interesting. I knew that I wanted a cool bike one day. I knew that cars interested me. I liked manual cars. You know, I liked all that stuff. All the motorsports stuff all existed in one space for me. When I was a teenager, I got the chance, for my first car that I owned was a manual transmission, which was a really big deal. I felt so lucky that my first car had a manual. It was a little Mazda 3 with a stick shift, and loved that thing. And it opened the door for all of these opportunities and interesting things with people I met and little like car meets and friends. And so for a while there, I had a very big interest in cars because I didn't have a bike yet. And I kind of didn't think about bikes for a while. This was in my late teens, maybe going 20, 21 years old, around there. And so I liked JDM stuff. I liked, you know, I had a 350Z for a while. And I, throughout the years, owned a few sports cars and stuff. I always liked sports cars primarily. I always had a big love for Porsche. That was always some of my dream stuff. I was very lucky to own a few years ago a 991.1. Loved that thing. It was very beautiful, very, very nice vehicle. But the conflicting thing I have is that cars, after you've ridden bikes, they just can't, they just do a different thing. You know, cars are a different thing. Cars are fun because you can put somebody in the car and like share it with someone else. The experience can be shared more easily. You don't have to gear up to wear it, right? So I see the benefit of cars in that, you know, for example, I've got kids. I really want to share with them motorsports someday. And you know, we're getting started with two-wheelers now. My little girls have like their little like, well, one of them's literally 2 months old. She doesn't have anything yet. But the 2-year-old, my oldest one, she has like a little balance bike thing and a scooter. She's already playing around. She has her little like motorcycle thing that kind of looks like one that she parks next to mine. It's very cute. I love it so much. But there's no way for us to really share that other than me just like turning a bike on and letting her maybe rev it a little bit, which is amazing. But a car, as she gets bigger, I can put her in it. She can hear the engine. She can see me shifting. It's a little more engaging, right? And you can share it more easily. So I do appreciate them for that reason. And I'll be honest, there's nowadays, like, I really like very specific older stuff. Like, I really like 997, 911s, 991s, naturally aspirated, some old JDM stuff, S2000s. I still like the Z cars a lot. I know people think that they're kind of cheeseball, but I still think they're great, bang for buck. Big V8 muscle cars have kind of grown on me a little bit too. Love Corvettes, you know, just like simple stuff like that. Simple, naturally aspirated stick shift cars that are rear wheel drive still appeal to me to a great deal, but they're never going to do what bikes do for me. Bikes are just like, once you've tried a bike, that's it. It's game over. Like, it's bikes. That's it. I wouldn't say stopped caring about cars, but it was mostly just like bikes just do. The emotion, the feeling a bike gives you is like nothing else, you know? But to the flip side of all of that, I hate car-based infrastructure. I think it is the bane and scourge of society. And I'm actually working on a video talking about how more motorcyclists need to become radicalized to the fact that car-based infrastructure is a cancer on American society specifically. The fact that people are forced to own a car to have basic human mobility in this country is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. I'm a huge proponent of multimodal transport. I want to see more trains. I want to see more bike paths. I want to see more walkability. Because what happens is everyone always thinks like, oh, that's like some, you know, lefty, blah, 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 like this guy's a communist. Like, that's not what it is at all. Actually, it's empowering and it gives you more freedom when you have options. Like, I don't want to drive a car every single day of my life. It would be awesome if I could jump on a bicycle and very quickly and safely go to the grocery store, or I could take a train and go somewhere. And what that does is that it reduces car-based traffic for everybody. Because I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't think everybody should be driving 5,000-pound SUVs while they're on their phones. Like, so many of these people are so incredibly irresponsible when they're driving their cars. And you look around and you're like, why are we forcing these people to drive? They clearly don't want to drive, you know? People like us who enjoy motorcycles and cars, you know, part of the equation of enjoying cars and motorcycles is operating them correctly. Like when you drive a manual transmission, you want to heel and toe. When you ride a bike, you want to nail your throttle. Like, we're passionate about operating the vehicle, right? Most people are not passionate about operating their vehicles. They treat them like appliances, like refrigerators. And to me, I'm just like, I want to get those people out of cars. I would love if those people could just take a train, take a bicycle, take a pedestrian path, take a tram, take anything that is safe, that you could just go and get to where you need to go. There's also the fact that there's people that are not able to drive a car, right? There's people that are impaired or too old, or, you know, we also, for really young people, you trap them at home at a certain age too, because why does a 13-year-old need to be chauffeured around? It'd be so great if they could just jump on a train, go wherever they're gonna go and come back. So I have a lot of conflicting opinions about cars. Conflicting, right? I love them. I love some of them. I used to love them a lot. I hate car-based infrastructure. So yeah, it's a long story, and I am working on a video specifically talking about some of those things. All right, Ayo Edgar, Papa Yam, what is your personal favorite way to clean and detail your bikes? Also, what brand soap and cleaners do you use? So I don't really have like a super, you know, detailed way of cleaning my bikes. I have a very simple little pressure washer I bought from, I think it's a Craftsman that I got from Home Depot or something. It's not super powerful, but it's powerful enough to wipe away the dirt using just pressurized water. And then I just use like a muck off motorcycle like solution. I have 2 buckets, one dirty, one clean. And I use a 2-bucket system and like a couple brushes, and I just rinse it off. That's it. I keep it very, very simple. And honestly, I don't wash my bikes as much as I should. Trexar has asked, hey Yam, you got me into motorcycling last year and love what you do. Thank you. Could you talk a bit about going to the track for the first time? On a sports or naked bike, or the bike doesn't really matter, what to expect? Cheers. Yeah, sure, going to the track for the first time. So most people, when they go to the track for the first time, they think that it's gonna be a super high-paced, frenetic, you know, adrenaline-inducing activity. But really, most track days, at least for like, you know, people who have never been before, a complete novice, it's much more of a school rather than, you know, racing and passing and doing all this crazy stuff. Because most people who are novices, you don't want them doing those sort of things. You really only want like, you know, expert level riders or racers, you know, like passing and riding as fast as they can because they know how to do it. So all you need to expect is just bring a motorcycle that has good tires, isn't leaking any fluids. It doesn't really matter if it's a sport bike or a naked bike. You could bring any bike really. And all you're gonna do is just like, you're gonna follow the lines in a big conga line. It's gonna just be you and an instructor controlled. Maybe by the end of the day, they'll let you do one clean outside pass, you know, just like nice and safe and controlled. And it's just really about you feeling the flow of what it's like being on a racetrack where you're never stopping. I remember when I did my first track day, it was middle of 2016. So geez, it's been 10 years. That's crazy. Time flies. I remember feeling like it was so crazy to like never stop. I was always so used to stopping in traffic. And then when I got on track, I was like, oh my God, you just keep doing corners. Like you never stop. Like that's so cool. So it could be that, you know, you start to feel that way too. But yeah, it's really just like a school more than anything else. Jeremy Day 166 has asked, why don't you like the new Ducati 937? I know it's a turn from the old, but it's still a fantastic bike, especially from a price standpoint. It's so much fun, and I just can't understand why it gets hate. Plus, I went from a 2025 Vulcan S to the 2025 937, and it's world-changing. Love your show, Yam, and I can't wait to win one of your giveaways. Thanks for the great content. It's not that I don't like the 937. I assume you're talking about like the Ducati Super Sport from years back that used the 937 engine, because now Ducati's using the 890cc V2 and everything. So that's a last gen product. The original 937 Super Sport, when it came out, Honestly, that bike came out too early because really what the new Panigale V2 is a 937 Super Sport of days past. And at the time, that bike was kind of like, oh, people were like, oh, it's a fat Panigale. It's not as sporty. It's not as razor sharp, because Ducati was still making the Super Quattro engine in the V2. So they had 150 horsepower Panigale. They also had the V4 products coming out at that time too. So the old 937 Super Sport was sort of this awkward bike at that time, but now it's been kind of proven, and again, the Panigale V2 proves it, that people like those bikes a lot. And all you have to do is make them a little bit lighter and change the styling a little bit so it's less, like, sport touring bike, 460 pound sport touring bike, and more of like, oh, this is a 415 pound sporty bike that can go on track and on road. So the formula proved itself over time. I just think that bike was too early. It's kind of a trendsetter. Airglide 2. Ooh, I have a question. What do you think about the future of having more gears on a motorcycle? I really feel it's time we evolve beyond the 6-gear limit and enjoy the benefits. So this is something I haven't really thought about lately. Is why is it that we only have 6 gears on every single motorcycle? Like, there's not even any option that I know of that has like 7 or 8 or 9 gears. In automatic cars, there's 9-speed, 11-speed transmissions for automatics. And I think what it is that, kind of like when you have there's bicycles that have like a 2x, gear setup where you have 2 cogs in the front and a bunch of cogs in the back. And that's to like get the perfect ratios for when you're, going up or downhill or going super fast. And, it obviously introduces a lot of cost and complexity to add gears to a motorcycle transmission. Most of motorcycles have, pretty much all of them, the transmission and the engine are kind of like mated as one thing. It's not like a car where, it's like a separate unit away from the engine. So car manufacturers can typically, they'll pop in different transmission options for different engine configurations. But with motorcycles, since it's all one thing, the packaging of the bike itself and the engine has to work with the given transmission. And I think it's just, this is me just spitballing off the top of my head. I think that's the reason why you don't see bikes with more gears, because the transmissions kind of become standardized in the way that they build it. And it's also like, you go from bike to bike, you're expecting gears 1 through 6. You're not going to ride a bike and think, oh, I'm going to get gear 1 through 7 or whatever. And it's strange too, because, with motorcycling, one of the big things is because we have a chain and sprocket as opposed to a differential on a car, the gear ratios internally, obviously they're important, but you can also dramatically change the ratio just based on the sprockets that you use too. So we have more options available to us for, motorcycles that you maybe want to have a little bit more legs for top end, or you want really short and snappy for city cruising. So those are just some of the considerations of why I think we haven't really had, a 7 or 8 or 9 speed motorcycle. Daniel Milliken 9557 has asked, what would you say the biggest pitfall is for those who street ride? As someone who doesn't live near track, the back road twisties are my go-to, but I'm worried it will build habits and will limit me on a track one day. I think the biggest pitfall and limiting factor for somebody who doesn't go on track and they only street ride is understanding your braking. That's the number one thing. If you don't go to a racetrack where you can very safely figure out how deep you can really brake, you'll never really learn that skill correctly on road, because the risk is just too damn high. People can say, oh, I'm riding hard on the twisties, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. The number one thing I see with riders on twisty roads, and I encounter them from time to time on Lime Creek Road, I'm out there just having some fun, and I come up on somebody, the biggest thing I notice is the brakes, because it's way too dangerous and your mind will not let you brake super deep, in a regular twisty road. If you're on a big wide open racetrack and you can see the runoff, you're going to experiment. You will try. You'll say, okay, I'm going to brake a little deeper. And you have the little braking markers too. So you say, okay, I'm going to cross that one and then I'm going to brake. And I'm going to trail it into here. And that repeated muscle memory of braking on track, that's what then lets you go back on road. And then you think, oh, I can brake on road all day long. You know, I can trail this in and modulate and adjust. You know, actually just today I was riding this bike, getting a feel for it, and the brake pads kind of suck on the R7. And so I was coming into a corner and I was just like not stopping. And I was like, I need like a lot more pressure to make this. And I kept pulling and pulling and pulling. And I tightened the line and I got there. And I thought to myself, man, if I didn't have like proper racing and track experience, maybe I would have just gone off. I don't know. Because like the bike really was not stopping very well because the pads suck on this thing. And so, yeah, I think that in combination with learning the reduction of dead spots. That's the biggest thing you'll learn on track, especially when you get started racing, is the way to piece together a really fast lap time is to have input on the bike at all time. No dead spots, no coasting. People coast on street rides all the time. I see people going through corners just coasting, or neutral throttle, or no throttle actually going through corners. I'm like, not even braking. I'm like, what are you doing, you know? You gotta brake, get on the gas. Like you build that muscle memory on track that I think is just really difficult on a very flowy, twisty road where you don't have to worry about apexes as much. You're creating safety. It's a very different skill set. So that's why I would say maybe would be some pitfalls if you're never going out to a racetrack. But plenty of people have great motorcycling careers and lives and never go into a racetrack. I'm not going to say everybody should go do a track day. It's just a heck of a lot of fun and you learn a lot of stuff. Jaiko Hall has asked, question, what would be your dream bike? I mean, which company's engine or which company's design or which company's handling, like an engine with the reliability of a Honda, but a visual design by Ducati? That's an interesting question. I still think that something like a Yamaha XSR 1000 would be pretty much my solved problem for a hyper naked motorcycle. You know, all the hyper nakeds now, they look kind of funky. You know, the 210 V4 we just had was probably the closest I got to being like, okay, I could do one of these. Like I could have one of these in my stable. This thing's amazing. It's so much fun to ride. It's useful. It makes a great sound. But then, you know, servicing a V4 is complicated. You know, I'd be willing to pay for it, but it's complicated. And it just doesn't, you know, the 210, you love the bike for how it rides, not necessarily for how it looks. And for me, the way a bike looks is important. I want it to look cool. I want it to be emotionally interesting. And so I think an XSR 1000, that's a great engine. That's a great frame. But the MT10 looks like garbage. So you give it this kind of like sophisticated neo-retro vibe to it, you know? I think it could be a knockout hit. I've been saying that for years, but they just won't build it. So that's something I would really enjoy. Yeah, I would really like a bike like that because I still yearn for something with big power again in my stable, but I just haven't really figured out what that's going to be. Again, the 210 V4, I was about to buy another one of those and keep for myself. I'm not even kidding. I was like, this bike is phenomenal. The torque, the power, everything about it is just great. And I may still get one. I really like that motorcycle. All right, Samakazi 10, 2025 Honda CRF300L Rally. What are your thoughts on it? I bought one earlier this year and I'm having a blast with it. It's not fast, but it will literally go anywhere I want, making it the ultimate adventure bike. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, as unlike a Catholic priest, I don't think you've touched on this one before. Actually, I have many, many times. I feel like I went through a few years where I was recommending the CRF300L Rally like all the time. I'm pretty sure I had this video I made, I think in 2024, that I checked the other day and it has like almost 1 million views, which kind of surprised me. It's like how I would start riding all over again if I had to do it all over again. And I talked about how a CRF300L Rally is a fantastic starting point for a motorcyclist because it lets you do all sorts of fun stuff. You can dabble a little bit off-road, you can ride on-road, you can commute with it. It's a great Swiss Army knife with like genuinely good bulletproof Honda reliability. So really cool bike. Kind of funky looking, but really cool. Yamahaski has asked, does older Ducati worth the shot? I think he's asking, is an older Ducati worth it? I'm really looking for a 848 or 1098 as a road and track bike, or should I go with something more traditional like a Fireblade? He wrote Fiberblade. A fiber blade is what your grandpa needs to take every morning with his Metamucil. From 2005. I found the newer Superbike parts and service more expensive than older ones. Since I'll go on track, I want something more sustainable. Love the V-twins. So the 848 and 1098 platforms, from what I understand, are actually relatively easy to work on. This is Ducati pre-VW, pre-electronics, a lot of stuff, So these bikes had fuel injection, they were not carbureted, obviously, and they had proper performance, minimal electronics, liquid cooled, 4-valve Desmo. So you're gonna need the Desmo tool and some special stuff. But from what I've seen, as long as you have a service manual and you take your time, it's actually not that bad. The trellis frame design and some of the other stuff, it's actually pretty simple to work on these bikes. It's not insane. And so if you like V-twins and you want to have a track-going V-twin, 848, you could really do a whole lot worse. I'd be remiss not to mention, if you don't want to go Italian, you want something Japanese, RC51, SV650s, those are great platforms for race and street bikes that have V-twins that maybe will be a little bit more reliable than a Ducati. But really, 848s, they're not that bad. I think it was largely overblown with how unreliable they are. 111SPE has asked, question, you said guitar was your other hobby. I can also tell you're a watch guy though, aren't you? Yes, I am a bit of a watch guy. I wear my F91W. I mean, this is like my daily watch, pretty much for all occasions. I don't own any super expensive watches. I have maybe one or two that are pretty pricey, but what they all do, which is I think the most important thing, is they tell a story. Every watch I have, I can tell you why I like it, what makes it special, why I got it. I don't have stuff that I'm like, oh, it's like expensive and it look cool, so I got it. No, they all have a specific reason for being in my little watch case. And I don't have too many. I think I have 6 watches, maybe 7. But they're just interesting to me. I like them. I like the stories they tell. I'm not like super well versed with watch stuff, but I like the ones that I have, and I just keep it simple that way. And then, yes, I do also play guitar. I have a big modular synth. I do a lot of cool music stuff. If you look way down in the description box, I think I still put my music link all the way down there, so you can check out stuff that I've made over the past 13, 14 years or whatever, however many years it's been that I've been making solo electronic stuff. Played in a band when I was younger and stuff. Wrote a lot of songs on guitar, played a lot of songs on guitar. Had a great run in my teen years, playing guitar, getting girls, having fun. It was a good time. R. Sesters has asked, do you think returning riders should go back to more beginner bikes, or do you feel that experience carries over well? I got back on a bike after 17 years and felt like it was coming back pretty quick, but don't know how much of that is false confidence. So this is something I, in a roundabout way, have experience with. When I got into my really nasty crash in early 2017, I was off of a motorcycle. I didn't ride for about 18 months. Because, I got back in late 2018. I got that Honda Hornet 919, and then I got the FZ07 giveaway bike shortly after that. And honestly, that was kind of me returning to motorcycles. I had to rethink and relearn. I had a lot of muscle memory from riding still, obviously, but it was all still pretty fresh. And I'm really happy that I got something like the FZ07, something that was torquey but manageable, something that was fun to ride but not insane to ride. I think a returning rider, especially after 17 years, there's no reason to jump into something with so much horsepower. There's plenty of bikes that are awesome and fun that make 70 to 90 horsepower or so. And the cool part is, because it's been so much time away from the motorcycle, you'll have the ability and the memory of how to ride, but any bike is going to feel super exciting and good to ride. Like, you're so ready to feel that feeling again that I'm sure you're like, oh my God, any bike is great. So I really recommend sticking to that kind of 70 to 90-ish horsepower as a returning rider, because that's a lot of fun. A lot of guys come back and jump on stuff that has 30 or 40 horsepower and have a great time. David KB2QC said, Yambro, turn off that autofocus on your camera. It's pointlessly changing the focus to your hands. It would be a lot less distracting in my opinion. Don't worry, I noticed that. I normally use the big DSLR here in the studio. I've got the, the Sony a7 III. And I've been using the camera you're watching now is the DJI Pocket 3. And I just really like the Pocket 3 because it's small, it records for forever, it's great, and the file sizes aren't too big either. And I've just been really enjoying using that camera. It's super fun to use. But yeah, I forgot the autofocus setting, mea culpa. Mavitros asked, do you think the influx of e-bike teenage riders will create an influx of young motorcycle licenses, or do you think these cheap pedal-assisted bikes will be all they need? Personally, I think we will see more motorcyclists. I think that there's going to be, I don't know how many more motorcyclists there will be, but I think for a lot of these young guys who are on the e-bikes and stuff, I hope it will create more motorcyclists because, hopefully you see that, you try the pedal-assisted bicycle, maybe you get a Sur-Ron or something, and then you're like, well, I want real power, because as fun as those e-bikes are, I don't think it really substitutes the feeling of like a real deal motorcycle. And truthfully, I think once you get to a certain age too, not to say that it's a bit juvenile to be on a Sur-Ron or something like that, but maybe you want the more mature, put together feeling of a real motorcycle. But I think the biggest hindrance is that right now you can jump on an e-bike or a Sur-Ron. You don't have to have a license, you don't have anything, you just buy the thing and you just start riding it. With a motorcycle, you need a license, you need to go get the special thing, you need special gear and all this stuff. So I think there's a couple barriers to entry that holds people back from trying a motorcycle. But I also think there's a bit of a old man unk effect with the motorcycling stuff. Like I see it in my neighborhood where like all the young kids, I live in one of those neighborhoods that has there's golf carts and e-bikes everywhere. And I just see all these young kids ripping around e-bikes, and I feel like a super old unk when I'm on my Monster or my Touareg. I just feel like they're just like, oh, look at that old guy on one of his motorcycles, yeah, hopefully it creates more riders. Hopefully it stirs more love for two wheels, because what I'm seeing is I don't think, a lot of people have this theory that it's oh, motorcycles are dangerous and people don't like them anymore. I really don't think that's what it is. I think we went through a weird lull where, because of COVID and because of other things, people got scared of stuff. But I'm seeing kids doing all kinds of crazy stuff nowadays in my neighborhood. And honestly, I like it. I like seeing kids being silly, being dumb. That's what they're supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to be inside all day staring at iPads. I don't want kids doing that. I want kids outside, making little skateboard videos with their friends, jumping their e-bikes, going into a ditch or something. That sounds awesome. Don't hurt yourself, have a fun time, be a kid. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And hopefully that translates to more motorcycling in the future. But boys, that's going to wrap up the questions for this week. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Drop some more down below. Always love looking through the questions. And this is a really fun series. I'm enjoying it, and I think you guys are too. So we'll keep it going as long as you guys like to see it. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.